Hello, my name is Zand, and I wanted to give you guys a quick recap of the Pokemon Generations League Season 14 draft rule set and the team I drafted, just so you have a heads up as videos start coming through on a weekly basis in the future. The reason I wanted to start uploading for this league, and I do mention this in my week 1 battle, is I think this concept is super exciting. I really like the idea of combining 3 niche league types and putting them together and giving them to a bunch of experienced players and kind of seeing what comes out of it. So the 3 types that I'm alluding to are national decks. So instead of just using Pokemon in Generation 9, we can use any other Pokemon and we can use any cut move outside of, I believe, just Hidden Power and Pursuit. Um, we are doing low tier draft, so pretty much all the common threats you would see in an OU or a UU game are completely gone. They are not allowed in this. Any first pick type Pokemon are not here. The top tier is something like Goodra, Delphox, Gallade, Gardevoir. So good Pokemon, not great Pokemon. And I will be sharing a draft document in the description below. So if you want to go and tell me what your perfect team would be with your 55 points, what would you make? And then the third kind of differentiation for this league is that instead of having Terra captains, we actually draft our Terra type. And we draft the Terra type in one of the 11 rounds. So instead of picking a Pokemon for one round, you would pick a type. Once someone else picks that type, it's gone and you can't pick it. And then the types costed different amounts. So Steel, Fairy, and Water costed 5 points. So that was 5 points you didn't have to use on your 10 Pokemon team. Grass, Psychic, and Bug gave you 5 points back, so you would have a total of 60 points to spend on your team. So the average would change depending on your Terra type. Every other type was just 0 points. It didn't cost anything, but it also didn't refund you any points. And that's kind of the other great thing I really like about the league is that the points are very slim. In a lot of leagues you'll see, like on Smogon leagues, they'll have enough points to buy the mid-high tier Pokemon with almost all their points and maybe get one joke Pokemon at the end for 1 or 2 points and still have a really well-rounded team. Whereas in this league, if you go super top heavy, your bottom 3 or 4 Pokemon are going to be very bad. They're going to be the 1 or 2 pointers, which in low tier is a lot of not fully evolved Pokemon. Like on my team, there's Marshtomp. So just a lot of cool concepts there. There are a couple of rules that do impact my team specifically. Shed Tail is completely banned. And of course, I drafted both the Pokemon that can learn Shed Tail anyway. I do think they are good in their own right, and I think they can definitely still add a lot to the team. The other complex ban is there are certain setup moves banned on certain Pokemon. Shell Smash is completely banned, but also Dragon Dance is banned on Scrafty specifically. It's a bit of an odd ban, but I kind of get it. There's fewer Pokemon that outspeed Scrafty when it gets to +1 speed and +1 attack, and it's also just very bulky. So it would be pretty hard for someone to deal with Dragon Dance, so I'm not complaining. But anyway, the team I decided to draft was not this one originally. I really wanted to go with something like Bisharp plus Terra Ghost. Uh, Bisharp is banned, and Terra Ghost was taken before it even got to me on round 1. 4 Terra types went before I even got a chance to pick as pick 14. And those types were like Fighting, Dark, Ghost. So a lot of the good mid-tier types that weren't expensive. So I had to pivot. I decided, why not start with something odd but very versatile? So I started with Galarian Slowbro. It has really good offenses, both at base 100, so it's unpredictable on which I'll bring on a weekly basis, and also it's already so slow that it would be very easy to run it mixed without having to worry about cutting a defense, because you can just cut its speed instead. It can also run sets like Iron Defense Body Press, so very versatile in the ways that it can set up. It can run Assault Vest, it can run Trick Room, and it can also abuse its own Trick Room. It's not a Trick Room setter like something like a Musharna where it can set Trick Room and then it just kind of wants to vanish and let something else in, especially in singles. So that was pretty good. I thought it worked out well, and I was planning on getting Grass Terra with it so I could counter its ground weakness, and I didn't get Grass Terra. It got taken something like round 3 or 4. And actually, by the time the Terra pick got to me, there were only 5 left. There was Dragon, which I didn't want. It was not very good offensively, and I needed something to help some of my Pokemon because they tended to have pretty shallow move pools. There was Rock, which is not good defensively for me. A lot of my Pokemon are weak to ground or to fighting, so Rock would just double up on that. And then there was Steel and Fairy, both of which costed way too much. If you look at my team, a lot of my top Pokemon other than Simisear here were very expensive, so I didn't have that many points to work with toward the latter half of the draft. So that left me with exactly one option, which was Tera Fire. And we went with it, and I actually think it works pretty well with this team. So, especially with Simisear, because you get to double your stab, fire attacks do insane damage if it runs Choice Band or Choice Specs. I don't know that it'll be brought that much, but it is faster than a lot of this meta. We have Scrafty, who's very weak to Fairy, 4 times weak, so it'll almost always get one shot by a Fairy type attack. And Tera Fire just means that quad weakness suddenly becomes a resistance. So I think that could be a great synergy to have with something like a Bulk Up or a Rest Talk set. To work with Slowbro as a regenerator core, I did get Cyclozar as one of my only forms of hazard removal. Probably not the best Pokemon without Shed Tail, but I do really like having a Pokemon that fast. I like that it has some bulk, it has mixed offenses just like Slowbro, and I think even though its moveset is pretty shallow, it does have enough options on both the physical and special sides to make a decent Pokemon week by week. And if nothing else, you can run Knockoff, Rapid Spin, U-Turn, and the 4th move really doesn't matter that much. Another Pokemon I decided to get was Florges and Earthworm as a combo. I was really nervous once I grabbed one that the other would get sniped because I did tend to get sniped a lot in this draft. I originally wanted Slurpuff because it's like my favorite fairy of all time, but I ended up going Florges and Earthworm instead because Slurpuff went right before it got to me. Florges is a great Pokemon on the special side. Its special offense and defense are both amazing. It can Wish Pass into a few of my Pokemon. Most of them have some form of recovery, but it can send wishes to those that don't, and then it also has that Hill Bell aromatherapy. So if I run something like a Rest Earthworm, which I may or may not have run week 1 of this league, then I'll have that. I can just cure the rest, and it's pretty much the same as a Wish. I also decided I would add Articuno. I noticed this team was not very rock weak. At the time I hadn't yet drafted Simisear. I actually didn't have a fire type at all. So I had no rock weaknesses. I had a bunch of ground weaknesses, or at least no ground immunities. So I thought Articuno kind of worked pretty well with this team. I think Tera Fire can be advantageous on it because it'll usually already have heavy duty boots, and fire and ice coverage is pretty good, especially with Freeze Dry hitting water types super effectively. I then rounded out my regenerator core by slapping Tangela on. I know that a lot of Eviolite Pokemon have trouble staying alive, so an Eviolite Pokemon that can use regenerator seemed kind of like a no-brainer. So I can switch it in. It'll eat any physical hit, especially those that Earthworm doesn't want to take. And yeah, I think it'll be a great addition to the team. Its special offense is actually at 150 or an even 100 as well, so it's not weak in special attack. It also gets knockoff, so I think it's very beneficial to the team. Some of the lower tier picks that I think might have some impact, definitely Manectric is a solid pick for Tera Fire, because normally you see Manectrics in older generations. They'll run Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, either Flamethrower or Overheat, and Hidden Power Ice, and that's very strong coverage, especially for Mega Manectric, and it really didn't need anything else. In a generation without Hidden Power, and where I didn't take Tera Ice because it got taken earlier, I thought it made the most sense, because with most of the other electric types, I would have had to run Tera Blast, and I would have had to commit the Tera type to that electric type in order to attack with it with a fire type move, because Hidden Power is banned. So I thought, why not take an electric type that already has fire coverage, so I'm not committed to Terra-ing it in order to get that extra fire attack. And even on top of that, I can just add the stab, and suddenly it's like a budget Rotom Heat. So that was kind of my thinking there. It was an electric type that really fit the team well. Originally, I had Virizion and Lumineon on this team, and I really just didn't think they fit after a while. I thought at first that my team was going to be pretty heavy with Eviolite, so I thought Virizion was good as a knockoff switch in. But as I looked at my team more and more, I really didn't think it made a lot of sense. So I decided to switch it, and then Luminion. I liked the speed tier, I liked U-turn, and I liked Defog. But if I'm only bringing a Pokemon to do those things every week, I'm just going to bring Cyclizar. It does the U-turning, and it does the hazard removal, and it's a lot faster. So I really just didn't like Luminion. So I ended up trading those off. I picked up Scrafty, and then I picked up Simisear. I needed a fire type, and if I wanted to, I could have gotten something like Houndoom, but then Scrafty would have had to have been something like a Spiritomb. So I thought, as far as filling speed tiers and getting a decent fire type, I thought Simisear made some sense. It gets some coverage, it gets some decent moves, and it gets Blaze, which actually, if it gets into Blaze range, it's Tera Fire, double stab. There's not a lot that wants to come in on that, so definitely an option. And finally, don't have a single ground type on this team. I have one electric immunity, and then I don't have a water type because I dropped Luminion, so Marshtomp. Baby Swampert, except it doesn't get flip turn, so it's a lot worse, but if there's a team that really doesn't have a lot of grass coverage, I think it could make a lot of sense with a Wish Passer. And then it's actually my team's only grass weakness, so I think it fits really well. It has good synergy with the rest of my team. Yeah, so if you want to, in the comments, I'm going to leave the blank document. Let me know if you had free reign to pick whatever you wanted. What would you have drafted?